Math is full of interesting facts. For instance, did you know if you fold a piece of paper 43 times, you'll be able to reach the moon? Stick around to find 10 math facts that you possibly didn't know. Parametric sequences can predict the next term in any sequence. For example, in this sequence, we can determine that after infinity iterations, it will converge to infinity, as most sequences do. Our rate of change in this situation is 3. We can graph this in a single axis in a number line. We can also determine this is a type of arithmetic sequence. The formula for finding the next term, or any term in an arithmetic sequence, is the first term plus your number of the term you want to find minus 1 multiplied by the rate of change. For example, we have 10 terms here, so the next term is the 11th term. In this case, it's 1 plus 10 times 3. This is equal to 31. If we check the 10th term, 28 plus 3 is 31, so this is correct. But what if we wanted to do this for sequences that are geometric, or multiply instead of add? Well, first of all, we have already mentioned after infinity iterations, it will become infinity. So, in conclusion, the infinitive term is infinity. The greatest common denominator function of these two terms, or any of these two terms, is 2. The formula for finding the next term, or any term in the geometric sequence, is A equals A subscript 1 multiplied by GCD A1, A2 to the power of n minus 1. In a pair-consistent logic, or logic that prevents explosions, which allow anything to be true in logic, you can actually graph truth. 0, 1 represents falsity. 1, 1 represents contradiction, or both in pair-consistent logic. If something is false and it's also true, such as grass is green and grass is not green, truth is represented by 1, 0, and if it's no information given at all, it's 0, 0. Interestingly, this forms something known as a truth lattice. It might just look like a square, but it can also be a diamond shape at the respective radians. This formula looks very complicated, but it almost always equals 0 if no approximation is used. This is the Black-Scholes formula used for predicting how much turnout you can create with stocks. If we have our current price as 100, our expected turnout is 100, our expiry date as half a year, our volatility as 0.2, our risk-free rate as 0.05, our variable D is equal to 0.2475. Then we calculate the normal distribution, a type of probability distribution. We get 0.5978 after performing this operation. So that means every $1, the stock is expected to increase 0.5978. This incredibly huge number might look like it's just infinity. However, this number actually equals -1. Here's a simple algebraic proof. If x equals infinite nines, 10x must equal that number multiplied by 10, which naturally adds a 0 to the ones place. Then we keep subtracting x. This means 2 actually precedes 16 in the two-adic system. There can be a system for any number that is adic. If you join two tables, which are both equally true, say your name is you and your eye color is brown, and merge them with something else that is true, like for someone else, their criminal record is wanted and their eye color is also brown, you can get something that's false derived from two true things. Identifier you, eye color brown, criminal record wanted. This is probably not true. The principle of explosion, which we mentioned earlier, says that if P and the negation of P is true, then anything can be true. Q is anything in this case, and this symbol, which looks like a turn T, it means therefore. This can be represented as a sequent function or a list of terms that proves T, and that would be P and negated P. This causes an explosion in logic. The human brain's perception is the change in I divided by I. I in this case is a number. This can be graphed on an XYZ plane or a 3D graph. Say if we had two numbers, 1 plus 9, that would be significantly bigger than 1001 plus 9 because the perception is less right there. Curvature can be calculated by R equals A multiplied by cos t and comma A times sin t. Curvature of a circle is always the reciprocal of its radius. The factorial function is defined as the products of A to k equals 1. It can also be k equals A. The primorial function requires a helper function such as f. In this case, it determines if it is prime. So it is the multiplication of all prime numbers below it, such as 6, which is 5 times 3 times 2. This is equal to 30. And for our final fact, e to the power of I plus 1 is 0. You can conclude e to the power of I equals negative 1. But why is this? Well, we can find the I pi root of negative 1. This is equal to an exponent. So if we say I to the pi root equals I to the power root of to the power of negative 1, this also equals our square root. Using our power rules, we can determine that e to the power of 1, or I pi multiplied by the reciprocal of I pi, equals negative 1 to the power of I multiplied by pi. This results in e to the power of 1 equals e, which is true. Finally, we get e equals e, which is another true statement.